We're now going to go to Mrs. Kusi for 5. Then we're going to take a very short suspension so we can do a voice check for Mr. Hardy. And then we'll continue with Mr. Hardy. Go ahead, Mrs. Kusi.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Clerk, it's very concerning because there are some inconsistencies in the timelines and the testimony that you are giving the committee today. So I'm just going to outline the first one that is very concerning to me as well as the committee. So you get appointed in February of 2023. Then we see you in a motorcade April 28th of 2023 with the Prime Minister, the individual who does the appointments. And in that video, in the motorcade, you say that, in fact, the Prime Minister was over at your place the evening before, the residence of the 27th. And then, lo and behold, Global Affairs Canada, that had put the project of a new residence on hold, all of a sudden, after your appointment, your dinner with the Prime Minister, and then being in the motorcade with the Prime Minister, Global Affairs Canada decides that there are issues with the current residence and that it is time to look for a new residence, apparently a $9 million residence. Isn't that convenient? So can you elaborate for the committee again, please? What was your implication in discussing the new residence with the department and with the Prime Minister? When did you first bring it up with the Prime Minister? Because the chronology would definitely, the chronological timeline would definitely indicate that you had conversations with the Prime Minister about the residence. Because isn't that funny that you would be appointed, you would have dinner with the Prime Minister, you would be in a motorcade with the Prime Minister, and lo and behold, Global Affairs Canada decides that it's time for a new residence after that visit. Isn't that funny? So just tell the committee now when you have the conversations with the Prime Minister about the new residence, because that's what happened. Isn't that right, Mr. Clark?
No, Mr. Chair, it's completely wrong. I never spoke with the Prime Minister about the old residence or the new residence or any residence. The Prime Minister was not over at the residence for dinner. It wasn't just he and I. There were about 80 people there, including the mayor of New York City and including the head of BlackRock Investments, as well as a number of other people. But the core of your question is, when did I or did I ever speak to anybody about this? The answer is unequivocally no.
Well, Mr. Clark, it's very hard for myself to believe this. It's very hard for this committee to be this. So let's stop the lying. I'm going to go to another timeline, which is just not very supportive of your testimony that you have not had these conversations with the Prime Minister. Okay, so there's an email from internal to Global Affairs Canada stating your involvement, outlining your involvement, that's sent on June 17th of this year. All of a sudden, in the media, which I know is your friend, a story breaks on July 11th of the $9 million condo purchase. Then this email, this internal email, is sent on July 25th, which shows that you personally have green-lighted this project. And lo and behold, this July 25th, or correcting it on July 25th, further to the July 11th email, which highlights your green lighting. But this July 25th email, lo and behold, it is one day after the committee passes the motion demanding your appearance. So again, this is another timeline which is very damning to your evidence, to your testimony here today, Mr. Clark. So why don't we just stop the lying? When did you have a conversation with the Prime Minister about the necessity for a new residence? Just tell the committee, please.
You know, Mr. Chair, when we get to the point of accusing people of lying, I think that we are in very, very dangerous territory here. I will state once again for the member, I had nothing to do with the decision to sell the old residence or to buy the new residence. I did not speak to the Prime Minister about either of those transactions
have the documents, Mr. Clark. We have the documents that indicate that you personally greenlighted this project. And lo and behold, so conveniently, after your time with the Prime Minister back in 2023, shortly after he appointed you, we know that you have had conversations with the Prime Minister about purchasing this $9 million residence on the backs of Canadians. And now we have the email trail that proves that as well. You have tried to cover it. Global Affairs Canada has tried to cover it, but the email paper trail does not lie. And so I'm not buying this. This committee isn't buying this, Mr. Clark, and Canadians aren't buying it.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, sorry, let me interrupt for a sec. That is our time. We'll do your point of order, then we'll suspend quickly so we can get Mr. Hardy checked voice-wise. Go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand that Ms. Kuzi wants to use the term "we" and the committee.
Is he setting a standing order in this point of order, Chair?
Yeah,
Please
this
let him
is
finish the point of order. Go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you. I just take point with the fact that not every member of this committee is of the same opinion as Ms. Kuzi
Which
is.
standing order is he citing in this point of order?
Thank you,
which
Michael.
rule was violated?
Genuous, please let him.
Yeah.
Are you finished, Mr. Jari?
Yeah, so just wanted to be on the record. The Liberals are not in the same opinion as Ms. Kuzi is.
Is this
Thank
a
you.
point of order?
I appreciate that. We're going to suspend for a few moments so we can check, voice check Mr. Hardy. Just a few minutes, for 5 minutes, please. Go ahead. And welcome to Olga, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a fellow recovering broadcaster, Mr. Clark, I think it's always worthwhile to look at the current situation and then look for normative information. Is this new? And in fact, it isn't. I want to quote a 2010 media report at a time when we're trying to recover from the financial collapse. The report said as follows: federal spending on Canadian embassy properties and diplomatic residences abroad soared 430% since Stephen Harper's Conservative government came to power on a promise to rein in the diplomatic decorators. After years of trying to move from owning embassies to leasing them, Foreign Affairs is now building a number of new ones, including in Moscow, 8.3 million, Damascus, 6.4 million, Prague, 4.8 million, Dhaka, Bangladesh, 4.2 million, and Stockholm, 4 million. The media report went on to say construction of a new embassy in Pakistan has already cost more than $7 million just for the land and preliminary plans. The largest single embassy project detailed in the public accounts in 2009 was in Kabul, as Canada prepared to withdraw from its combat mission in Afghanistan and expand its civilian presence there. Spending on the project in the past year, that is in 2009, topped $20 million, including $9 million for renovations, $11 million to buy property, and another $1.4 million to clear the possible landmines. So this is kind of the history of what has gone on in the past. Next to that, the situation in New York in this age of rage, as we're witnessing this morning, seems to be quite mild. And so I wanted to turn back to you, Mr. Clark, to talk about the importance of the efforts that Canada makes. We saw U.S. protectionism under President Trump. It's not out of the question that we can see more protectionism, or at least moves in that direction, under whichever administration we have after November. Can you talk about the value and the depth and scope of the relationship building, and why perhaps operating out of a no-tell motel somewhere in the precinct of New York City wouldn't necessarily send the right message to the people that we're basically trying to reach?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I think one of the ways to explain that is to take a look at the 5 states that I am responsible for. And in each one of those 5 states, Canada is the #1 customer of theirs. In other words, we buy more from these states than the 3 other buyers, Japan, China, France, the European Union combined. So we are extraordinarily important to these states in that also about 70% of the stuff that we send down to the United States ends up as inputs into American products. We are so closely integrated. And I think that the challenge for Canada is to continue to talk to American legislators of either party and say that we have become so integrated that to try and separate that not only would be hugely costly and almost impossible to do from a regulatory point of view, but it'd be dumb, quite frankly, because it would hurt both Canada and the United States. We're entering into an era now, and this is what I often say, is that the route to the Americans achieving their goals and what they want to do runs right through Canada. And for Canada to achieve our goals, our road runs through the United States. It is no longer a question of buy America or buy Canada. It should be buy North America. We have to be thinking in terms of resilient supply chains. We have to be thinking in terms of the next time the world gets knocked down by a pandemic or a war, all of these things are possible, that we have supply chains that can literally be accessed within a couple of hours because we're literally just up the road. And we have in Canada the materials that are so necessary for the next phase of the global economy. We're in a terrific position in this country. It's a question of us seizing the opportunities that are there. And that is really the bulk of our work, regardless of the outcome of the American election.
Is it possible to say that we have good friends in the United States?
Oh, we have extremely good friends in the United States, and this has been one of the big takeaways for me as I travel around and I meet so many American politicians, business leaders, and so on. It's hard to find somebody who doesn't like Canada.
Great. Well, let's hope the age of rage is coming to an end and we can get on with being civil to each other internationally as well as domestically. Mr. Chair, that's all the time I need. Thank you.
Thanks.